taxes in the township. At approximately 9 p.m., we will finish the public comment portion of the meeting and may move on to make a recommendation. It is imperative we exit this room and this campus before 10 p.m. as we are guests on this site.
It's okay.
So we will start clearing out the room approximately 9:30 so we can adhere to their strict rules of being off the property at 10 p.m. Thank you. Okay, with this I would like to call the meeting to order. And the first item of business would be to approve the January 28th, 26th meeting minutes. Does anybody have any comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second? Second by Bob Logan. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, tonight we have a development application for a data center, Sentinel Green Fig LLC. It's an amended land development application to construct 2 data center buildings, surface parking areas, landscaping, stormwater management facilities, and connection to the Chester Valley Trail. The amended plan differs from the previous approved plan as follows. A, total building square footage has increased from 1,026,800 square feet, or 1,544,880 square feet, including basement, to 1.6,056,630 square feet with no basement, along with related increases in building coverage and impervious coverage. B, the cooling equipment has been redesigned and relocated from the ground immediately adjacent to buildings, water-consuming cooling towers, to the rooftop, waterless rooftop chillers, along with corresponding sound mitigation barriers. Emergency backup generators have been relocated from the basement of the building to the ground immediately adjacent to the buildings, along with corresponding sound mitigation barriers. Office uses and loading facilities have been relocated from the southern side of the building to the northern side of the buildings facing Sweetsford Road. Additional trees and landscaping have been proposed on the former sewer lagoons located between the development site and Sweetsford Road. Design and location of stormwater management facilities, parking lots, and internal circulation areas have been modified. Previously proposed microwave towers, antenna yards, and ground-mounted cooling towers have been eliminated. This property is located along the south side of Sweetsford Road, near the township boundary with West Whiteland, and is within the INS institutional zoning district. With that, I will turn it over to Greenfig.
Is this on? Thank you, Deb. Members of the Planning Commission, Lou Colagreco here this evening representing the applicant, Sentinel Green Fig. Thank you for that introduction and the way this meeting is going to be run this evening. Some of this we started to go through at the prior Planning Commission meeting, and some of it may be repetitious, so I'll ask you to bear with me. I'll be short in my comments. After I speak, one of the principals, Charlie Ledane, will give a brief commentary. And then Josh Rubino will go through a slide presentation that some may have seen before, but it's changed. So we want to make sure everybody gets the correct information. This is the latest and greatest in that. We'll be done well within, I think, the hour that we've been allotted to do this presentation. As you stated at the introduction, we are not here before you or the township seeking any change in zoning. We have the right to build a data center, and we will build some sort of data center. The question here before the township and for the Planning Commission is, which one will it be? As you accurately pointed out, The current plan has 2 buildings on it, each with 500,000 square feet above grade, 250,000 square feet below grade, for about 1.54 aggregate total square feet. We have an equipment yard, open loop cooling towers, and approximating 3 million gallons of usage per building, per day. 7 antenna yards with 250-foot tall microwave towers, emergency generators with open metal grating at grade for discharge and exhaust. As I said previously, the plan that we now have before the township, we thought was an improvement on many of the currently approved plan elements. We have, since the prior meeting, we have received final reviews from East Whiteland Township consultants. This process has been going on now for probably, on this plan iteration, probably about 4 or 5 months, with us responding to questions that we've been asked by the township consultants, the planning commission, resident comments that we've received. We've recently updated our written response on 2/26/26. I think the last time we were here, I forget, we had the 2/5/26 report, but that has since been updated. Also, the last time we were here, there were questions from Commissioner Lammer regarding heat generation from the data center buildings, and we've provided that information. We can get into that during our presentation. We also updated the acoustical study to reflect the latest design iteration. There were some questions about the gentleman, the headmaster of the church farm school. We've answered those questions. And in fact, the facility continues to operate, will operate on average at about 9 to 13 decibels below ordinance allowance. And as I said the last time we were here, this is a 2-township project. The West Whiteland Township, which is handling the stormwater management, most of it for this facility, has approved the amended plan. Both its planning commission recommended approval and its board of supervisors voted for that approval. So I think we can go through the additional commitments so I can move on with the presentation. So to summarize, the air-cooled chillers, I don't think anybody in the room would disagree that they're better than the water-consuming chillers that we're now going to, with the current plan, employs. The berming between Sweetsford Road and the project has been increased by 3 times what is on the approved plan. And that comes at probably about a $700,000 or $800,000 extra expense for the project. The aesthetics, we've provided more detailed aesthetics. We think they're much more pleasing than what the approved plan has. This plan has new sound walls and buffers. We've agreed, and in fact your ordinance requires post-operation sound monitoring, so that for anyone who doubts, we have to prove that we fall within the sound decibel allowances of the ordinance, and if we don't, your sound ordinance has some fairly severe penalties for doing that. And really, when we ran the sound testing, it was with all generators running full speed, which we do not believe will happen. There would have to be a massive power outage in the whole region for that to occur. But when we test these generators, we have to test them during the week, and we've agreed to 2 simultaneously per building for testing purposes and only during the daytime hours. And as I said here, that last parenthetical there about the last time we had a major power outage was in 2003. So the chance that all these generators will be going at the same time, we'll all be in a little bit of trouble if that's the case. So if we could summarize again what I said to start my comments, not seeking approval of the use. We would prefer that comments this evening apply to your land development and subdivision ordinance, which is what we're bound to adhere to and which we have adhered to. We think that this plan is an improvement over the currently approved plan. We've answered all the consultants' comments. There were no violations of any ordinance cited to us in your consultant's comments. And we think a yes vote tonight, or a yes recommendation tonight, would affirm compliance with the ordinance and really solidify long-term economic support for the township. It's a substantial investment, and I don't want to get into finances or money. I know that's irrelevant in some areas, but it is a significant financial boost, we believe, for the township. And all we're asking for nothing more than we be held to the same standards that any other applicant is held to that comes before this planning commission, and that we be judged by the laws of East Whiteland Township. So thank you, and I'm going to ask Charlie Ledane to come up here, give a few words, then we'll get into the slideshow presentation.
Thank you, Lou.
One minute, Charlie. I forgot to mention, for those of you interested in anything related to the power, the electric issue, PICO gave us a slide presentation, and it is available on the township website for anybody who wants to review it. Sorry about that.
Good evening. I'd like to say hello to the board tonight. I'm Charlie Ledane from Green Fig. Thanks to everybody for coming tonight. And I will try to provide you some background for this project. For the past 9 years, Greg Walters, my partner who developed part of Great Valley Corporate Center, and I have attended many, many meetings in East and West Whiteland. We've worked closely with the townships, the EPA, and the state. Our partnership has worked tirelessly to bring you this world-class project. A strategic asset that cleaned and revitalizes a Superfund site and puts it back on the tax rolls, and decommission and will reforest the sewage treatment plant into township open space, all at our expense. The project will only enhance Chester County's reputation as a great place to live and where business is on the cutting edge of technology. With us tonight are our partners, Josh Rabina and Ed Russo. Our three companies joined forces in mid-2025. Both of their companies are considerably larger than Green Fig and have excellent reputations, as you'll see in the slideshow. We're here to answer your questions because we've heard your concerns. This team has incredible experience, talent, and ability, and we used it all on this project. Last year, Green Fig completed the land development process in East and West Whiteland to secure the right to build 2 data center buildings, which would each use 3.6 million gallons of water per day. Our new partners, after looking at the water usage, redesigned these buildings to use more expensive air-cooled chillers to make the project more sustainable and efficient by reducing the building water usage to a minimum. Coffee and comfort, they call it. Our new partners, when they changed the cooling systems, we needed more room on each roof for the air-cooled chillers, so we redesigned these buildings, which were 3-story buildings, as 2-story buildings to give more area on the roof. The total square footage is close and still 200,000 feet less than the 1.8 million allowed by our zoning approval. These modifications will allow us to build an architecturally attractive, state-of-the-art facility using very little water, which is considerably quieter, and much improved wave forest upgrades are included, that is, if we get the amendment. All the partners have the highest design standards. The appearance of the buildings always very important to each of us. So Josh brought in Gensler, a globally renowned architect, to help. You will see from the slides we're committed to building a beautiful, sustainable project which we can all be proud of. Please listen carefully to the level of upgrades from the previous plan which Sentinel and Russo bring to the table. This is a greatly improved project. The new buildings look terrific with water savings of 2.6 billion gallons per year. We'll be taking no water out of the water table here. The amendment's not complicated and fits well within the letter and the spirit of the East Whiteland zoning ordinances. We have strictly adhered to the zoning code and have designed a world-class facility for East Whiteland. We will build a quieter, more efficient, and sustainable project. Josh will now provide additional detail on the project, and after that we will answer questions from the committee and then the community. And I thank you for having us here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Josh Rubino with Sentinel. Our hope here for the next few minutes is to, we heard obviously a lot of questions at the last meeting and on the message boards over the last few weeks. And our goal here is to, in 5 minutes or less for each of them, just to provide some context to hopefully answer some of those questions. And obviously at the end of the deck, we're happy to answer any questions that were not answered along the way. But item number one that we wanted to address first is visual impact and landscaping. So lots of questions as to what we are building, what will it look like. Previously the plan was essentially, a commodity style, warehouse looking asset with large cooling towers off flanking the building to one side. The new plan, as Charlie said, our goal is really, and this is true with everything we built, and we'll show you some pictures of some things we've built in the past, but our goal is, first of all, to make it invisible in the first place, so we're doing all kinds of vegetation to prevent, lines of sight from any public rights of way. But to the extent it is visible, we want to make this a very good looking building. As Charlie said, we brought in Genzer Architects, who's one of the most preeminent architects in the world. We use them to build tall office towers in Manhattan. And we intend to, our directive to them, as you can see from some of these early renderings, is, to make material selections, to make design decisions that really, my opinion, will make this building look like any of the buildings in the Great Valley Corporate Center that we are in right now. This is just a few more renderings. To the question of space and floor plan. Prior building, as Charlie mentioned, was a 3-story building, 2 stories above ground and 1 story in the basement. It was a skinnier form factor and amounted to 772,000 feet of per building and 1.5 million square feet total, including basements. The new plan is 2 stories, no basements, 413,000 feet per story, adding to 1.6 million, all of which is considerably less than the 1.86 million square feet allowed by zoning, and is roughly 100,000 square feet different. Among the main reasons we did this is because the prior plan with its evaporative cooling towers, water is a much more efficient medium to remove heat, so you can do it in a lot less space. The prior plan did not need a big roof to spread air-cooled chillers. As you can see, we tried to show from an engineering perspective here, this amount of water-cooled chillers on the left is equivalent to that amount of air-cooled chillers on the right. And the big reason the form factor of these buildings changed was to accommodate the fact that we needed more surface area on the roof to eliminate the water consumption, as Charlie said, which, despite the small space, the plan on the left made more noise and consumed a boatload more water. Prior plan also, as was mentioned in the lead up, included antenna yards and microwave towers. The new plan eliminates antenna yards and microwave towers. There were 7 yards and 250-foot towers. As Charlie mentioned again, an enormous amount of effort has gone into the landscaping here. We very much want this to look great from Sweetsford Road. In terms of the numbers, we're keeping the tree quantity, which there really wasn't practical to squeeze any more trees, but we are doubling or tripling in some cases the size and diameter of the trees. So with respect to the coniferous trees or the evergreens, we've gone from a code minimum 6 feet up to 12 to 14 feet. From the deciduous trees, we've doubled or tripled the trunk sizes. We've also added almost 600 shrubs and multiple berms to even increase the elevation of the trees beyond the 12 feet. This is a rough rendering of the plan. We really believe that this will be a complete transformation of what used to be 2 sewage lagoons abutting Sweetsford Road and also abutting the trail. So this is at the end of the day, a forest with over 1,000 new pieces of plant material. And then lastly, just to provide a little context, because obviously data centers mean a lot of different things to different people. There's lots of noise on the internet. These don't have to be ugly buildings. These are buildings that either our organization or Russo's organization has built over the course of the years. We take enormous amount of pride in building these things. We own them for long periods of time thereafter. And we'd also just note for, those that don't know us, we've been in this business for 25 years. We've literally never received a complaint, a single complaint. Noise, environmental, these, are not all, this is new for us to not be an asset to the community. Water usage, we mentioned, but just to put some pictures around it, this is what cooling towers look like. This is what air-cooled chillers look like. It's an ugly building. It's just a picture from the internet, but ours will look better, and we'll have sound walls and parapets that extend above. You won't see any of it from any public direction. The technology, as we mentioned, we don't need to linger on, but big picture is the water-cooled technology evaporates steam, so there's plumes of steam coming out of the top of the towers. The air-cooled rejects heat directly with air. And just to put some real-world numbers around it, the old plan evaporated roughly 200 swimming pools per day worth of water. Our new cooling systems use nothing. Bathroom sinks, coffee, as Charlie said, but nothing for cooling. Acoustics. We've run multiple iterations of an acoustical study. We updated the acoustical study after the last meeting to add a receptor at the Church Farm School, which was requested. We've submitted these studies to the township's experts who are here tonight, Cara Eberbach. Long story short, as we've mentioned in the past, this is at a 75% running scenario, so this is, in our minds, is the highest real-world scenario. We don't run these buildings to the red line. The customers are too conservative to do that. In this case, we're give or take 20% below the ordinance on average, better than the prior plan, not different materially than the surrounding ambient conditions. We also ran it at 100%, which is completely unrealistic. It doesn't change the numbers all that much. We're 17% below the ordinance on a blended average. We were also asked by Plan Commissioner Laumer at the last meeting to analyze the effect of these types of buildings, and this building in particular, on heat and humidity. The air-cooled chillers take in cold air and release hot air. We ran a CFD analysis. Our engineers do this kind of modeling anyway when we design these buildings, and the conclusion was really no. Using 105-degree temperatures outside and adding in the wind and all the other elements to make sure it's accurate and conservative, there's no perceptible increase in the temperature or humidity at the property line, at the trail, at Sweetsford Road, etc. Generators. So we are using generators here for emergency standby reasons only. So that's in contrast to some of the things you read on the internet about data centers that are using primary generators for their primary source of power, where they may not have a grid connection. Primary gens run around the clock, obviously. Our gens run, hopefully, never, other than for some short periods of testing, which we'll talk about. This is the initial building. It'll initially have 36 engines flanking on either side and equipment yards that are fully screened visually from the street, from the parking lots. In terms of the commitments that we're going to make around generators, we happen, obviously we'll comply with all noise ordinances. Obviously we'll comply with all EPA regulation. It's worth noting in this market, the EPA, this is among the most stringent of EPA emissions restrictive markets. So it's what's called a non-attainment zone, where the EPA, regulates both emissions and or fuel consumption, and it's the highest possible level of regulation, which means obviously affects how much we can run the generators, but also affects the equipment that we use. So per engine, we're adding about $500,000 each of just emissions, extra tier 4 emissions controls, which reduce the particulates in the engine. Above that, which is law and regulation, we're also agreeing, as we've mentioned, to visually and acoustically screen all the generators, to only test 2 generators per building at one time, and to only do that testing during daytime hours, and to actively monitor noise at all times at the property line. Just to again put some visual context around when these things will need to run. As Charlie mentioned, this was the northeastern blackout of 2003, when you go back and we had PECO pull the outage records for the Plainbrook substation, which is a substation that will be redundantly feeding this site. We're adjacent to it. The last time they lost power was for 7 hours in 2003 during the northeast blackout. This is what the screening will look like on the side of the building. So regardless of number, whether they're running or not, this is the visual impact. It's just another take of the before and after. The prior plan had large cooling towers sitting outside the building. This will be fully screened. And this is just a bit of detail, probably not worth getting into. And then just to wrap up with a bit more of a positive rather than defensive note, we believe this project, takes what Charlie and Greg and partners had spent the better part of a decade on transforming this, what was once a very burdened Superfund site. We believe it is a safe and productive use of the land. At the end of the day, it will produce, we think, very large amounts of money to support the Great Valley School District as well as the county, without really providing any additional, children who will go to those schools, or traffic, or service requirements, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess just to wrap up, we'll state, whether we build this plan or the old plan, our goal here, and we understand there's pushback. It hasn't always been this way. Our goal here is to be a good neighbor. Our goal here is to build a project that everyone here is proud of, and we hope to be able to get your support to do it. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the information. I have a question for you, sir. How many data centers have you built or been involved with in the 25 years that you stated you were involved?
Give or take a dozen campuses, so, you know, maybe, you know, some of those with multiple assets on them. And that's not including, you know, Ed's probably another dozen beyond that.
Okay, and then my other question would be, how does the acoustical screening on the original plan differ from the new plan?
I'm not fully equipped to answer that, but I don't know if, Nick, you want to?
Sorry, I can save that question for the engineer.
We're happy to.
Nick Marzarati, Sentinel Data Centers. So the previous plan had cooling towers at grade, and so the sound wall acoustical screening that was in was just north of those cooling towers at grade, blocking the noise from those cooling towers. Our screening is similar in that our generators, though exterior to the building, in sound attenuated enclosures, we intend on putting a similar sound barrier on the north side of that equipment yard. But also because our chillers are on the roof, we are going to be putting a acoustical screen wall along the edge of the north wall of the roof. And so that was consistent with what's been in the acoustic report so far.
How tall?
They extend about 4 feet above the top of the chiller currently. The question was, how tall is the screen wall?
Yes, John Lawler here, and I have. I'll get closer. Can you hear me? Okay now? Hello, John Lawler here. I have two questions. First one is, basically, are you going to stay with air-cooled chillers on the roof, or is there a future possibility of mixing or switching back?
We would make a commitment to stay with air-cooled chillers.
Thank you. You're going to stay with air-cooled chillers.
The question was, will we potentially switch to water-cooled chillers in the future? And our answer is we will commit to air-cooled chillers into perpetuity.
All right. Thank you. The second question is a little bit longer, and I'm going to read a 2-sentence preface and then ask the question. In the near future, there could be increased summertime grid stress from more apartments, maybe more data centers, more heat in the air from climate change. PECO already offers voluntary, incentive-based demand response programs. That's different than the other programs where everything has to be turned off and you have to run on generators, which is rare. The demand response programs go to offered to commercial customers who choose to be compensated for periods of reduced use of grid power, in effect, incentivizing diesel generator use. Now, I'm not accusing anyone of planning that. I'm asking, have you had discussions of this, A, and B, would you be willing to propose limitations on the frequency or duration of such demand response program offers in the future?
Yeah, so just to restate the question, oftentimes utilities provide incentives, payment incentives to come off of the grid at periods of grid stress. That decision, just in full candor, is a decision we would have to make with with both ourselves, but also with the customers in the building. So it interacts with the reliability obligations of the building, how many generators we actually have, and do we even have the ability to take all our loads off the grid and put them on a generator or not. So I don't have a definitive no. I will say we have never been successful, is the wrong word, at convincing our tenants to participate in demand response program. there's a flip side to demand response programs, which is a good thing, by the way, which is means the utility has to build less generation because the peak loads, the peak loads are shaved off and the peak demand can come off the grid. So it's a double-edged sword, but and it's a complicated question, but we've not ever participated.
Thank you. I don't think we have to answer it fully tonight, but I don't want to see it just disappear as a question. I'd like to see the supervisors engage with you in some ideas. All right? Thank you.
Sure.
And then finally, and then I'm done here, thanks for the thermal plume modeling. It was very helpful to me. It convinced me that the trail will not turn into a sauna in the summer and that the neighbors across the way will not have their air conditioners engulfed in heat. Negative in both cases, positive for the township. Thank you.
Hello, Bob Logan. Somewhat related to what John was saying is concerns about when you guys are rocking and rolling and you're using energy and the impact of that on local residents and people, maybe not necessarily local, but in the same billing area or wherever that works. There has been, in all of the paperwork and presentations we have seen, it says you're responsible for infrastructure. Well, to me, okay, that means we're going to build the stuff. But I've seen nothing about, okay, we will participate, protect, whatever verb you want to use, we will make positive steps so that we absorb electric rate increases that could be passed out to people in the township and other locations.
Right. Yeah, so, on the power side, as you know, we reside next to the Plainbrook substation, so we're taking power from that substation via two 230 kV feeds, which are the high transmission feeds. That project is roughly a $30 million project, $28.3 million. So as a first step, to answer your question, we have posted a letter of credit with PECO. The way PECO's tariff structure works is if they don't recover that expenditure through our payments to them via what they call the HT, the high pension tariff, then they can draw down on our letter of credit after 5 years to make sure that they get fully compensated. So, I'm not speaking for PECO, and I was asked to, if their study's up on the web, they told me not to talk about it because it's confidential, but other studies like that have said there are really two forces in the world affecting data center prices. One is driven by scale, so transmission and distribution. Like the more of it in your immediate local area, you get to spread fixed costs over more kilowatt hours, and it should pull down transmission and distribution. There's the opposite effect on generation, so the more generation you consume, the more plants have to get built. That's a regional effect, so that affects all of the PJM grid. So if they're building data centers in Virginia, and they're building data centers in New York or New Jersey, that impacts the generation prices and pushes those up, while the local effects pull down transmission distribution. So it's a complicated thing. We can't make any further commitments than we're making, because we just wrote a $30 million check to fund the improvements.
Josh, that study is online, and we have a copy, and it's on the website that goes through that. I'm kind of addressing that.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. There are studies of this that people, economists that are smarter than we are, we included those studies, some of them in, without getting too far into the weeds here, into the white paper that's been, or the Q&A that's been posted to the town's website.
Again, you seem to be talking about infrastructure and getting everything online for $30 million for PECO. I don't hear anything about, well, this is what we're going to do to protect all the local residents when everything is built and the prices start, the electric bills start to go up. That's what I'm hoping to hear.
I'm just not aware of a means by which, I mean, to protect the residences more than funding whatever improvements we can fund for PICO. That, you know, we're purchasing, you know, our customers really are making decisions to purchase energy from independent providers that are different than the ones that result in the residences' power rates. So they're making decisions every day about whether it should be green or energy or who they're buying. That's an open market that our customers participate in. What we can do is fund the grid improvements. That's really all we can do.
So you're the builder, but your customer's not here?
Excuse me.
No.
We have multiple customers in every building. It's not a single entity. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, we're going to let we're going to let the commission ask the questions, and then we will go to public comment after. Thank you.
Josh, just a question, Jamie Damiani. As far as your connection date with PICO, what date did PICO give you for transmission?
There's a first tranche that we're scheduled for the end of 26 and another tranche sometime in early 28.
Okay, thank you. And then as far as the building height is concerned, I believe the latest approval was for 45 feet, correct? I think that was the approved plan, 2 buildings at 45 feet. I know you're saying you're going from no basement to 2 stories. What is the height of these buildings? Just so that, because that isn't completely clear in the plans.
60 feet. 60.
60 for both? And that's...
Correct. Yeah.
So, and that would include the 4-foot
Probably
screening?
doesn't include the sound wall and the screen, so that's another... We can get you, we can pull up the actual info.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in the zoning ordinance, but the way we interpret it is it's measured basically at the midpoint elevation of the primary structure. So take the lowest point of the roof where it's sloping, and then the highest point of the roof where it's sloping, and the midpoint is how we understand the ordinance, which allows up to 60 feet.
And then my last question is related to the air-cooled chillers. I think, Nick, you and I were kind of chatting offline about this, and I wanted to understand what type of material is used in these air-cooled chillers, if there's any hazardous material to be concerned about.
So the chillers are predominantly copper, steel, and bolts to kind of hold up process refrigeration cycle. The refrigerant that's within them is a non-hazardous, very similar to most commercial refrigeration systems that you would see in like an office complex that has rooftop equipment providing comfort cooling. And so we don't believe there are any hazardous materials within the rooftop equipment. And the rooftop chillers contain the same refrigerant that the approved water-cooled chillers would have also contained. They would have also had refrigerant within them as well.
Excuse me, I'm Tim Kelly. Duration of construction, how long is that? And then is the only access to the site on Sweetsford Road, and how the traffic control can be managed?
Yeah, we've got a big team working on logistics and traffic control. The duration of the project should be give or take 2 years. Per building, we're initially just building the first building, not both buildings. I know Greg is an expert on the logistics, so we have a pathway that I think we're trying to get approved through West Whiteland Township during construction. If you know, happy to have Greg come provide. No? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. There are three entrances into the property. One is on Valley Creek Boulevard in West Whiteland Township. One is on Swootsford Road. And then the other one, the third one is from Backton Hill Road. That was the traditional entrance to Foot Mineral all the years it was operated. Sorry, I'll repeat that. There are three entrances into the property. One on Valley Creek Boulevard in West Whiteland Township, one from Swootsford Road across from the Malvern residential development. The residential development. And then the third one is from Backton Hill Road, which was the traditional entrance and exit from when the Foot Mineral owned the property and operated the plant. We have designed the bridge that crosses the bike trail to accommodate heavy truckloads. The Backton Hill Road is at grade, and we're have presented West Whiteland with drawings and proposal to use the Valley Creek Boulevard entrance as one of the primary entrances for the larger construction trucks bringing on the cement panel, the building panels, and other large loads. So those would be, there would be actually three. Our druthers would be that we use the Valley Creek Boulevard, and we're hoping to conclude some agreement with West Whiteland Township to use that entrance.
Thanks. And I guess follow up. So is it all tilt-up construction? That's what you're.
It's precast panels and steel frame. With a storefront at the front, the office areas.
Is it still on? This is going to regarding stormwater. I realize you just got approval recently with West Whiteland Township with the basins and their portion of the stormwater. What changes occurred, if any, or from the old data center that was approved to now, and you're very confident you're in compliance with the stormwater?
Yes, Jack Robinson, from JMR Engineering, the civil engineer for the site. The concept for the stormwater is the same as it was before. It's improved in that we have some more impervious to address. So what changed was we increased the size of our MRC rain gardens, which means slow release rain gardens. If you've discussed these before, we have 4 of them, and they were also 2 of them were moved into West Whiteland because there was more real estate there to expand them. The basin is the same size and does its job for the peak rate control, which is controlled from anywhere from 33 to 83% reductions in peak flow.
Thanks.
Talks about the Superfund site. If you go to Google Earth, you will see that it shows Foot Mineral Superfund site. And many people in the community don't understand the significance of cleaning that up. Valley Creek is an exceptional value watershed. the aquifer runs from the west to the east and ran right through this Superfund site. Foot Mineral had put lithium into a quarry. That lithium was leaching into our aquifer. The Board of Supervisors, the East Whiteland Environmental Advisory Committee, the DEP, and the EPA all worked to come up with a solution to clean up the Superfund site. What they did was they basically solidified the quarry because removing it would have been more dangerous for the environment. So that's one of the things that the applicant, this property owner, has done. Another thing the property owner has done that's not talked about is for years we talked about the rails to trails. It wasn't getting done, but we talked about it. Township Manager Terry Woodman and Charlie came up with the concept of, well, it's cheaper to put the sewer underneath the trail rather than put it in the road. Digging up the road will cost more. So the trail got started because of this property owner, from his property to the township building. Also, Malvern Hunt and the western side of the community got attached to the sewer. Now, they've also removed those sewage ponds that were in front of Malvern Hunt. So there's been some significant improvements to the community through this public partnership.
Thank you.
I mean, if I'm wrong about anything, please correct me, Charlie, but I remember what we went through and cleaning that up. You guys are also attaching Malvern Hunt to the trail.
Yeah.
That was discussed, as well as all the trees and cleaning up, removing those sewage treatment ponds.
We cleaned up the environment there quite a bit. The remediation of the Superfund site would probably cost about $50 to $55 million right now. The sewer line that went 2 miles to the township building where there's a pumping station would probably cost about $2 million now. The path to go over is $1 million a mile, so that would be another $2 million. We connected everybody's sewers in Piper Lane for free, and we connected everybody's sewers in Malvern Hunt with no cost to the Malvern Hunt homeowners. We connected your homes to the Valley Forge sewer system for free. And
Okay, you will have time for public comment. Can we please not yell out or shout? You will have time to make public comment. I read the rules in the beginning. I just hope that everyone can be respectful, remain respectful for the rest of this meeting. I promise you will get a chance to speak. Thank you. Any other questions? Any other questions from the board members? Anything from the developer? Okay. I just would like to make a comment myself. I live very close to the intersection of Phoenixville Pike and Sweetsford Road on Phoenixville Pike. And for those of you who were living in the community around, in the vicinity at the time when that Superfund site was cleaned up, I would just like to say that my family had to have a tractor trailer tanker for water, potable water, to live off of because the groundwater in our well was so polluted with carcinogenics, lithium, and we had no idea. When we bought our house, we had the well tested. We paid, at that time in the year 2000, $700 to have our well tested to make sure it was safe for our family. It came up clean. What I didn't know is that the type of things that were polluting the water is not something they normally test for, and that kind of test would require a lot of money to pay. So I learned a lot through that process. But I am grateful that it did get cleaned up, and they did connect us to public water at their expense. So I just want to make that clear. I am neither for or against data centers, but I would like to give the applicant credit for the amount of money and assets that they have given this township. That's all I want to say. It was, by the way, there were, I don't know, I think there was 5 or 6 houses on Sweetsford Road that were also experiencing the same issue, but our house was the worst because it was on the fault line of where the pollutants settled. So we were the only ones who had to have the truck, but everybody else had to have bottled water come to their house. So anyway, okay, we're going to move to, okay, we'll go to public comment after my fellow commissioner here has something to say.
I would also like to add the record that the Board of Supervisors minutes, September 8th, 2021, they recommended to vote, or they voted to recommended to send the township solicitor to the zoning hearing board to speak on behalf of the applicant and adding data center to the zoning, which is an uncommon practice. Thank you.
Zach?
If you were going to open it up to public comment, I just wanted to read into the record, sort of in a high level. Can you hear me? No? How about now? Closer? Wow. It's harder than it looks, guys, I assure you. I just wanted to read into the record the public comment that we received the email when it's time. Sorry, I didn't want to jump the gun.
Okay. Any other comments from any of the commission members? Okay, we'll go to public comment, and Zach, you want to read the online comments first? Is that what you want to do? And then
Just
also,
wanted to-
I have a question. The format for public comment, are you taking a microphone to them, or do they
Yeah.
need to come down and
I'll
speak at
speak
the
to that
podium?
as well. Yep, I'll speak to that as well. So yeah, before we get started on that, we do ask that everyone come down to the podium to make a public comment. We'll have some